The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole.
Now, one thing that is already universally known at this point by the general public is the fact that Disney is in full-on damage control mode.
I came back, the losses were around $4 billion a year.
Well, I know this point has been made, but this truly is the worst casting maybe in the history of the film industry. Has there been a film with worse casting than this? And I don't just mean the Snow White actress. Obviously, she's terrible, but both of them.
This is someone who is as entitled as, I don't need your business. You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it. You didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White. Right. You should shut up and do the job.
But I think the movie bombed because it's bad. Those CGI little people.
Now, for Disney, as you probably remember, all of this publicity, the Zegler interviews, the Daily Mail leak, caused a lot of unexpected, them anyway, pre-production problems. People weren't supposed to see and understand how unwatchable the new Snow White was going to be. It's supposed to be, kind of a surprise, but now there was no hiding it.
This is truly she has to go. I'm sorry, Disney. She has to go.
Now, one thing about Rachel Zegler, we know that she's not helping at all one bit.
But these guys at Disney, they're not that bright, they're not that smart, and we see that because they can't come up with any new IP. Why not write some new movies? You sit around, you have billions of dollars, they keep going back and rewriting the classic.
Disney is having its own problems. They're finally releasing the latest adaptation of Snow White, but they're scaling back the Hollywood premiere of the film. Kinsey, why is that?
Because Rachel Zegler is a PR nightmare.
You guys, Disney's new live-action remake of Snow White debuted this weekend, and it's an even bigger dud than anticipated.
Neither of them make any sense for their roles. We've already covered how Rachel Zegler is a terrible choice for Snow White. Nothing about her says Snow White, and that's even leaving aside the fact that openly detests the story, as she said many times during this disastrous PR campaign. But Gal Gadot, who plays the Queen, the first problem is that she's the evil queen. The evil queen is supposed to be envious of Snow White's beauty, and that is just not believable. It is just not, even in a movie with magical mirrors and dwarves and all that, in a fairy tale, that strains my ability to suspend disbelief. I cannot buy that Gal Gadot is angry that she's not as beautiful as Rachel Zegler. I cannot buy that.
I think it's fair to say that no one can stand the star of this movie.
One of the reasons why Rachel Zegler sticks around is she's got a beautiful voice and she has some talent. So I think that certainly helps her because she's a PR nightmare. I don't know how anyone would hire her.
Controversy has swirled around Gal Gadot's new movie, also starring Rachel Zegler as Snow White. A lot of people don't like her. A lot of people don't like her either. She's got a big mouth. She talked trash about the original movie.
Given all the behind-the-scenes mayhem, I expected Frankenstein's monster were seen to be stitched together. I think a lot of these live-action updates are really hard to watch. They've really done so much stepping on rakes over the last few months with this project where the box office is just not going to recover.
Oh, man. Hello, Disney. You're going to have to redo your film again because this woman is a pig and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
Welcome back to Gossip Glare. While we're at it, let's discuss how Disney and Rachel Zegler ruined our favorite Snow White tale with a disastrous remake that is ruined by Megyn Kelly and the rest of the world. Let's establish the scene. Once upon a time, a multinational entertainment conglomerate, commonly known as the House of Mouse, made the decision to recreate one of its most enduring masterpieces, Snow White. The animated series that first appeared when dinosaurs were still on the planet, or at least it seems that old. Theoretically, this should have been a box office success. Get a young actress with potential, dress her up in the classic costume, add some glittering computer-generated imagery, and you'll see the money come in faster than you can say. Bibbidi-bobbidi-boo.
Did the dwarfs make it or no?
Well, the CGI dwarf, and of course that goes back to the original controversy where Peter Dinklage, a very talented little person actor, said, "Why are we doing that?"
However, as fate would have it, they chose a pretty contentious candidate for the lead. Someone who was able to irritate almost every diehard Disney fan.
Every time she opens her mouth, it's crisis mode when it comes to Disney, having to backtrack. She talked about how this isn't a fairy tale about falling in love with Prince. This is a fairy tale about fighting your own.
In addition, there were some casual onlookers before the first trailer was released. Let's give her the affectionate moniker, the actress who shall not be named. Okay. Zegler, Rachel.
And to everyone, who hates when I win. The winged victory came to Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her.
Oh my God.
And I can only hope.
What does that mean?
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Because in a bizarre story twist, her casual comments about the 1937 original being out of date and useless caused such a massive online outcry that it seemed like the Magic Kingdom was on fire.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Bring out the pitchforks. Outraged fans took to the internet like fireworks on July 4th, demanding an explanation, an apology, or at least some respect for the original.
Now you have Rachel Zegler saying, oh, that 1937 movie, that's just, it's tacky, it's weird, we're going to change.
Let's face it, if you believe something from 1937 is cheesy in private, you probably don't want to show it out in public, especially if you've been hired to play that character in a multi-million-dollar remake.
She's not like the ideal choice for the lead role in Sweet Snow White.
It's like whining that there's too much singing in musicals while you're the main act on Broadway. However, our unjust princess wasn't finished yet. She intensified her criticism, added additional sarcastic comments about how the old movie was strange and out of step with contemporary ideals, and then essentially dismissed the idea of the beloved tale altogether.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who really stalks her. Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
Disney's public relations crew must have been consuming coffee like water at that moment, hurriedly organizing emergency damage control measures. Because, let's face it, this was going to be a PR disaster of epic proportions. The backlash naturally went into overdrive. Fans who had previously expressed interest in the new adaptation suddenly began using hashtags that said, "Not my Snow White." The whole thing was a circus. When Rachel Zegler noticed the barrage of criticism, she seemed to turn around more quickly than a frantic motorist on a one-way street. She appeared in a number of interviews, shedding tears as she spoke about how much she loved Snow White, how she had always admired the character's bravery and innocence, and how thrilled she was to continue the tradition.
It's just a total nightmare for the studios. So now she's trying to sell like, oh, I love Snow White. I love everything about the whole story. Here she is more recently trying to change the messaging. This is actually Wednesday.
Thank you so much for being here. And to see this is really emotional for me, so I'm going to try to not do that. I love her,
she's
and
emotional
her
now.
superpower is her heart. It's nothing supernatural. It's something that all of us have. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy Snow White. Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry. That was acting. That's what that was.
Indeed, the catastrophe worsened when Snow White eventually hobbled into theaters, like a cheap flop you might discover on a streaming service at 3 a.m. rather than a traditional fairy tale. Just imagine how disastrous a star's comments can ruin a big production if you thought one bite of a poisoned apple was horrible. But before we get ahead of ourselves, remember to like and subscribe because, let's be honest, without your help, I wouldn't be here. Let's get back to the tea. Let's observe the massive train wreck from above. It was announced that Rachel Zegler, who just starred in a musical that didn't seem glamorous enough for her, would be the next Snow White. Fans initially thought, hey, she can dance and sing. Excellent decision. In a startlingly short amount of time, she then deemed the 1937 Snow White dull, outdated, and essentially an antiquated artifact that had no place in the contemporary world. The response came instantly. Disney fans thought, wait, what? Was it the popular cartoon that essentially created this company's empire that she was disparaging?
And now she's trying to reinvent herself because there's been so much blowback. And you can only imagine the still calls about this woman behind the scene. Like, oh my God, we're $242 million in and our lead actress hates our film, our actors, our storyline.
Nobody believed she could win an Olympic gold with the way she backpedaled. Viewers were either glued to their screens or rolling their eyes as she gushed over the 1937 masterpiece, about as genuine as a spam email offering a free yacht. The film tries to redefine fairness, a message carried for over 9 decades. Fairness isn't about actions, but how you treat others. Snow White and the evil queen misjudge each other based on appearances, a powerful lesson, but Disney's handling of the remake backfired. Despite teasers and marketing, the damage was done. Social media erupted, calling it everything from a cheap imitation to a disaster for Disney's fan base. And if the Snow White controversy wasn't enough, the actress reminded everyone of her complaints about West Side Story, the very film that made her a star. Because, of course, whining about your big break is the best way to keep fans loyal, right?
That audiences walk away from this film with an understanding of the true meaning of fairness, of what it means to be fair in this world. There is a message that's carried on for almost years now from the original anime classic. That is, fairness is what has been. Fairness is to do with your heart, the way you treat the people around you, and it has nothing to do with what you like, and that's the misunderstanding between Snow White and the evil queen. It's such an important message, and the way that Disney has elevated it and brought this new audience is very special.
Even people who had never heard of her before began to raise an eyebrow at this point. Hold on, something's wrong when she disparages the movie that made her famous and the landmark endeavor that is meant to make her a household brand. As doubts increased, the uncontrollable PR snowball continued to decline, leaving a wake of dissatisfied viewers, eye rolls, and unfavorable news coverage.
Her West Side Story debut was not a hit, and that was a Spielberg movie, so that was kind of surprising. If you're a studio, if you're a director, if you're a casting director, you've got to think twice or times before hiring her. Listen, she's talented, she's attractive, she's got skill, but there are a lot of actresses in Hollywood who bring all that table and are not going to absolutely sabotage your work.
Watching someone burst the bubble of their own success could have been amusing enough in and of itself, but the Snow White adaptation's real release was the last straw. Hold on tight, for this is where the narrative truly makes its mark on the history of box office failures. The House of Mouse proceeded in spite of all the outcry, apparently believing that controversy buys tickets.
Behind the scenes, you guys know as well as I do, those executives like Spielberg are looking at that saying, Rachel Zegler can F right off.